Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is an action movie review and I'll be having a look at Vendetta. So this is a 2013 movie starring Dyer. Now Danny Dyer plays a character called Jimmy Vickers, who is an s.a.s. special forces guy who's kind of come back from Afghanistan or something like that, only to find his parents have been brutally murdered by kind of a local gang of hoodlums, organised crime types. And of course goes on a kind of mission for revenge, ultimately sort of finding out information about who these kind of criminals are and ultimately sort of taking them out one by one and sort of taking down their sort of criminal organisation along with it. He's of course pursued by the police and actually members of his kind of unit, military unit who kind of want him to return back. He's sort of gone AWOL to sort of get his revenge and whatnot. Danny Dyer, in case you don't know, is kind of this British, very sort of popular actor who kind of normally plays these sort of hard men roles, kind of like Cockney sort of wide boy type, and he doesn't really sort of change too much, to be honest, in whatever picture sort of he's in any kind of movie he's in. And it's fair to say this is kind of maybe him trying to kind of maybe do a little bit like Jason Statham did in Hummingbird, and trying to maybe kind of slightly change his kind of repertoire somewhat, but he still kind of more or less fits that same bill. He's trying to sort of subdue himself a little bit and trying to act a bit like more of a kind of professional soldier. I'm guessing, but to be honest, he comes across as a little bit wooden in this movie, I have to say. Now, in regards to the positive points, it's quite a brutal sort of beginning to this movie when Danny Dyer's character's parents are ultimately sort of murdered by this sort of street gang, and it kind of sets the film up for kind of quite a tense revenge thriller. And you know, the gangsters, the kind of guys who plays these sort of hoodlums, really do come across as a real sort of scum, and they do a good job in sort of portraying this kind of very kind of youth-centric sort of culture that we have in the UK here, where they're calling each other bruv all the time and things like that. Which, if you're coming from the UK, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I will say this: if you're kind of watching this and you're outside of the UK, from places like America, you may kind of get a little bit lost in some of the kind of the lingo here, because it's very kind of, even I, being from the UK, but not from kind of the London area, sometimes try to, had to really listen to understand what people are actually saying. There's so much kind of slang and, that kind of thing. It's sometimes difficult to really quite understand what's going on. So if you're, not from the UK, I would say, you may struggle a little bit. It's a pretty well made movie, I have to say, but there's a couple of issues I had with it. So the biggest issue for me, and this is by far and away the biggest issue I have with it, is the police in this movie are cartoonishly incompetent, and they have quite a lot of screen time. There's kind of almost like a subplot about this kind of commissioner guy. I don't know what level he is, basically trying to sort of ultimately sort of work his way up through the kind of the ranks to try and get the superintendent. And they spend way too much time really sort of on this sort of subplot. And the kind of pretty much all the sort of police characters that are involved, every single one, even kind of ones that in the climax, it just seems so that this wouldn't happen. The police just wouldn't act like this, and they just seem so like cartoon incompetent idiots. It's unbelievable. The second thing that I kind of think you may notice is when Jimmy Vickers, who's played by Danny Dyer, basically goes and finds these kind of criminals one by one, ultimately, so gets his bloody revenge, but you don't really see the kills. They're all pretty much off screen, which is, I guess, the argument for that is to say, oh yeah, no, it's using your imagination, and I think it's fine to do that on an occasion, but for, I think you can't really do it every time. So, and unfortunately, it doesn't make it kind of loses something in translation because of that, and almost feels like it's a TV episode or something, because you're not really sort of seeing the actual acts happening. I don't know if it's for budgetary reason they can't afford to. There are some sort of fairly sort of brutal deaths, but you pretty much just see either the aftermath or kind of it happening sort of off screen. And I say, along with Danny Dyer's slightly wooden performance, they're the kind of the main issues. It's certainly not a bad movie. Obviously, it's obviously not particularly original. I mean, a lot of people liken this to the Death Wishes. I actually think it's more along the lines of The Punisher, and a little bit of a mild spoiler here. It kind of almost sets up the Danny Dyer's character sort of becoming a sort of full-time vigilante at the end of this movie. It isn't bad. It's it's quite entertaining. I wasn't bored watching this movie, and I did quite enjoy the story, albeit not on a particularly original one. But like I said, there are some sort of issues with it. I do like Danny Dyer. He does have a kind of certain charisma, watching his films. You know, he's always entertaining to watch. He's just started in kind of a British soap opera here in the UK. But to be honest, this film was probably just a kind of really an average film, I have to say. Maybe slightly above average. So I'm going to give it a 5.5. It wasn't a bad movie. If you're kind of a fan of Danny Dyer, you're going to make it a kick out of this. Or if you like kind of your revenge thrillers, that sort of thing, you may want to watch it as well. Have you seen it? Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.